He says, whatever, just take it. Take the whole plate, he said, and we'll get it back, send it back, everything. And then this was one of the 2 flights out of about dozens of flights I was with Prabhupada. He was in first class, so it was a big jumbo jet at that time, 747. We had the very first 2 seats on the plane, nice big roomy area. So we board the plane, and because we're in first class, lots of helpers. So many servants, stewardesses there. And it was cold. I had Prabhupada's coat. As soon as we got on, can I take your coat? Okay. I'm very happy now. I got being taken care of. Now I'm being served. So I thought, this is very nice. I hand the coat, she puts it away. We sit down, and people are boarding the plane. We're in the very front, so there's not much disturbance as we board. So we sit down in the seats, and as people are boarding, they take the table out for Prabhupada. He starts taking prasada. Remnants, who was ever with him. We would split up Prabhupada's remnants. But now these were the deity's plates. So I couldn't do anything. So as soon as I take the plate and move it over, there's one of those stewardesses, comes right up to me. Can I take that for you? I said, yes. I'm thinking, this is so nice to be taken care of. That's all I could do. Oh, this is very pleasant. First class. I'm in first class. First time I was in a first class flight. So I'm very happy. I say, yes. Prabhupada doesn't say anything. He's just sitting next to me. So she takes it, and I'm not thinking anything. So the flight goes on maybe 2 hours. Prabhupada's quiet whole time. So finally the plane lands. Stewardess gets the Coke, gives me my chadar, everything. I'm still enjoying all this care. I forgot all about the plates, deity plates. So as we're walking out, there's that stewardess, big smile on her face. She's got a bag. The plates are all in it. Everything's washed. And she hands it to me. As she hands it to me, Prabhupada looked at me. He said, where's the prasadam? He looked at me. I was saying to some of the devotees last night, 2.5 years, Prabhupada yelled at me loud. Prabhupada could get maybe 4 times. Of course, he just looked at me. That look was louder than all the yelling he ever did, because I realized the huge mistake I had made. This was the Maha Prasadam from Srila Prabhupada. It was for me to take. I was so enamored by everything going on. I was in Maya. And he looked at me. He never mentioned it. He never said a word. We got off the plane. We went to the temple. He never brought it up again. But I learned a very good lesson that day. And I learned another thing. He knew he didn't have to even raise his voice with me. He could just look at me and I would be crushed. So then we get to the temple. Every morning we're on the morning walk. So that particular morning, as I said, he brought us in. Now I'm convinced. See, this is devotee. He sees it in Shastra, end of story. Doesn't matter what you hear there, what the pharmacists are saying, the doctors are saying, what the scientists are saying. If it's there in the Shastra, that's truth. So Prabhupada says there's no question they went to the moon. He said it's further away, 84 million miles, whatever it is, plus so many. Not possible, he said. Of course, he always said that. On the morning walks, this was not my field. Sometimes when Prabhupada would have little discussions with his disciples on the morning walk, and he would ask questions or something, and every now and then I would say something if I felt confident enough that I knew what I was talking about. But this was not subject matter that I knew. Science was not something I was very expert at. Paramahamsa was good. He would go back and forth. What did the scientists say? And they say like this, they say like this. But I avoided. I just held the microphone. You can listen to these morning walks, 1975. So then a few days go by. Every day I would give Prabhupada massage before lunch. So it's like noontime. And this cottage Perth is like a beach town, a vacation place, holiday place. So it had a swimming pool, little backyard, nice swimming pool. So after giving Prabhupada massage, he would go bathe in the pool. And later on I would go swimming in that same pool. So I give him massage. So I'm massaging him, I'm behind him. Half the massage I'm behind him. You can massage his head with sandalwood oil, cooling, right? We know Prabhupada said keep a cool head. So use sandalwood oil on the head. Rest of the body, mustard oil. So now I'm rubbing his back vigorously. He told me, you can massage my back as hard as you like, he said to me once. It was like a challenge. Because I would massage, I always thought I was doing okay. As hard as you want. The day he told me, I kept getting harder, pushing. He never said that's hard enough. No matter how hard I massage, he never said, oh, okay, that's a good place. Don't do any more. And his body never moved, just sitting on the mat like nothing was happening. And that's Guru. Heavy. Couldn't move him. So he defeated me. So he says to me, so you can only know your father through your mother, right? What did the scientists say? Now there's no one else in the room except me, so he's asking me a question. So I say, and he's talking about, how do you know Krishna? This is his analogy. You can only know Krishna through the Shastra. Shastra is your mother. Gives you all the information so you can understand your father, Supreme Father. So what would the scientists say? So I'm massaging and I said, well, you have to accept that your mother is telling the truth. Was the wrong response. He got so angry. Must be telling the truth. It's your mother. Must be telling the truth. You have to accept. He went on a little bit. So then he stopped. So I keep massaging. I thought, all right, we got through that. It wasn't too bad. So a few minutes go by. And again, he said, so the only way you can understand your father is through the mother. Yes? Yes. What will the scientists say? He asked the same question. And me, being the fool that I was, I gave the same answer. I couldn't think of anything else to say. So I gave the same answer. I says, well, you have to, believe your mother's telling the truth. Must be the truth. If you don't accept it, he said, what are you doing here? All of a sudden, he turned against me, like I wasn't accepting the Shastra. He said, you have to accept. Why are you here if you don't accept? I'm not going to say anything else. That's what he said to me. He said, I'm not saying anything else. He just got quiet. As upset as I was, as much anxiety as I was in, I was very happy that he said, I'm not going to say anything else, because I didn't know what to say. But he was so upset. So that's noontime. So the rest of the day goes on, and gradually my consciousness gets a little clearer. It would take time. He could crush you in a moment with a look. What to speak of talking to you. Just by looking, he could crush you. Then when he says that, what's your business here? You don't accept. Why are you here? He said, just go if you don't accept. So another 8 hours go by. And in between, of course, I cook his lunch, I serve his lunch, responding to the bell. Now it's evening time. He had a little bedroom, a little single bed in the bedroom. And I give him a massage in the evening. Morning time massage, 1.5 hours. In the evening, dry massage, no oil. You massage his legs, sometimes his back, but always his legs and his lotus feet. So I'm going up and down. And as I said, that was my favorite time of the day. No one else ever interrupted Prabhupada in the evening. Once he went into the bedroom in the evening, only person went in there was his servant to give him massage. Otherwise, you just didn't go in. You didn't go in there. So it was very personal, very private. So, as I'm massaging him, he said, I had a servant. He said, when I told him we didn't go to the moon, he said he left. Then he looked at me. He said, you're not going to leave, are you? I said, no, Prabhupada. I said, I have no problem accepting that. He said, okay, very good. So I realized even the conversation in the daytime, he's wondering what Srutakirti is thinking. Because he's asking, do you accept? Because he saw it in the Shastra. And he said to us. And now he's questioning me, do you accept? When I said you have to believe it's the truth. He's thinking, this boy, he's traveling with me for 2 years, he has doubts. I said, no, Prabhupada. Somehow or other, I'm still here. After 50 years, 52 years or so. Of course, it's been a struggle. But I never had any difficulty accepting what we say didn't go to the moon. But this is what it was like to be with Srila Prabhupada. He just spoke. Everything he said was from Shastra. When he spoke, he didn't invent anything, as he would say. I'm just a postman. You may like it, you may not like it. I'm just delivering the message. I always tell this. I became amazed when I became his servant. I said, just like you see here with Maharaj, just gliding along so nicely. You never know. Prabhupada, the whole society around the world, traveling around the world, translating the entire Srimad Bhagavatam as he's doing it, initiating devotees, opening centers, installing deities. And as all I saw him do was sitting in his room, walking around, chanting on his japa beads. Every afternoon, Prabhupada, we talk about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Huh? Many of you, we all know, he had his schedule. You can find it somewhere, some literature. You'll find what he did each time of the day. Prabhupada was the same. He was like that. He had a schedule. He followed very closely. Even as he was traveling around the world, even if he was on a 22-hour flight one day. We know. We would go to India. You all know from the West, when you arrive in India, what time do you come? Midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't in this nice Delhi airport you have now. It wasn't like that. We arrived at a very old-fashioned airport, and as soon as you arrived, you could smell, Delhi. Like they say, smelly Delhi. You could smell it. And then he would get to where he was staying. He didn't have a temple in Delhi while he was here. So he'd be staying at this person's place, that person's place, a place that Tejas was renting. So by the time you get there, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock, he's ringing the bell. Time for the morning walk. We're all sleeping. His entourage, secretary, servant, out on the morning walk. I always remember in Juhu, we had been in India for 6 months. And Prabhupada went to Juhu because there was always difficulty going on in Juhu. And he would walk on the beach. And from the property, the Juhu property, it was just 1 block to the beach. It was Prabhupada's favorite beach because it was very flat and very wide. And when he would walk, he had 3 different places where he would turn around. So when you were on the morning walk, you're hoping he'd turn around at the first place because he'd go for a long walk. And he walked briskly. Wasn't a casual walk. It was a speed walk. And he'd have his cane pushing into the sand as he's going. And we're trying to keep up, us 20-year-olds. Some of them wouldn't even go on the morning walk. They found that it was too difficult, too tiring. I had no choice. I had to hold the microphone. I was his servant. 24 hours a day, you had to be there. No one ever told me. All I was told was, when he rings the bell, the day I became his servant. When he rings the bell, you go in the room. That's what I knew. When he's on the airplane, you sit next to him. When he's in the car, you sit next to him. There were my 3 instructions. I always say there was no manuals, no servant manuals, bhakta manuals, japa manuals, japa retreats, GBC retreat. None of these things existed. Huh? So that's all I knew. So he rang the bell, I would go in the room. Very first time he rang the bell, Pittsburgh. I was his servant for 2 hours. That's all I knew. Go in the room. So I'm in his bedroom. It was a temporary place. I'm looking in his suitcase, just familiarizing myself with his kurtas, few kurtas, chadar or 2, dhotis, sweater, and that cooker. Looked like a little brass bomb sitting in the suitcase. It would never get past inspection nowadays. As it would go through the X-ray machine, they would see this little bomb in the suitcase. I had no idea what to do with that. But I was there. He rang the bell. So I jump up. I go in the room, offer obeisances. Prabhupada's sitting behind is always the same, just like you see here in his room, Radha Damodar. He had a cushion on the floor, a little desk in front of him. That was it. and a light on the desk for his translating work. So I go in and I sit up. I didn't know what to do, what I was supposed to do. I just sat up and I looked at Prabhupada. I said, "Yes, Prabhupada, what can I do?" He said, "Nothing. I just want to see how fast you are." And immediately I became relaxed because I was in so much anxiety. Being his servant, how can you even do it? Who could do such a thing? And I'm still looking at him. I said, "Anything else?" He said, "No, that's all." I'm sitting, I said, "Should I go now?" He said, "Okay." So that was my first meeting. So these morning walks, first stop, second stop, third stop. And we've been in India for 6 months. And Juhu, the airport's very close to the temple in Juhu. So we see in the morning walk 747s flying overhead. And me and my friend, secretary, we're like, when are we going to be on one of those planes? Get us out of India. This is what India was like for us. We're always sick. Everyone, we're always sick. The same 1975, we're in Hawaii on a morning walk. Same, myself, secretary, Sanskrit editor. We had been with Prabhupada for months. And we were all young. And I was the senior. By this time, I had been with Prabhupada 2 years. So I was like the senior person that knew what was going on. And we're on this morning walk. And Prabhupada's talking, becoming Krishna conscious, what you have to do. And he said, and if you don't finish your business in this lifetime, what happens? He says, well, you take body and take birth in India, nice Brahmin family, nice wealthy family like that. You take your next birth. And we're all looking at one another. After all this, I have to take birth in India. So, and he goes on, he just continues on, and none of us say anything. So after the morning walk, we get into the car. Drivers on the left side in the U.S. Prabhupada's on the right side in the front, and the three of us are in the back. And we're all still thinking, take birth in India next life. What is this, you know? And they start nudging me. Again, I'm the senior devotee, little servant, senior devotee. Ask Prabhupada, do we have to take birth in India? Ask Prabhupada. I'm like, you ask him. It's your question, you ask him. So we're fighting in the back seat. So finally I said, Prabhupada, on the morning walk today, you said, if one doesn't finish their business in Krishna consciousness, and we come back, take birth, Brahmin family or something in India. Prabhupada said, yes, yeah. I said, do we have to take birth in India? He said, oh, no. He said, now that we've established this ISKCON society, anywhere in the world one can take birth. And we all went, ah. How I would be so fortunate to be able to take birth in such a place has been established here. It's such a wonderful place. You're all very, very fortunate. All you devotees. There's lots of service, and it's just going to increase and increase, and you're going to be asked to do more and more. That's Krishna consciousness. I would always listen to Prabhupada sometimes when he would lecture. He would say, when one's performing devotional service, never become tired. They become more enthused, more energetic as they do service. And I think, how is that? I'm still waiting for that day. The more service I do, the more energized I become. But this was Srila Prabhupada. I told you his schedule, 2-3 hours at night, and then he would be up translating all of these books for us, for everyone in the future. then his morning walk, then class, greeting the deities, Guru Puja, class. After class, breakfast. Very simple. Fruits. Breakfast was fruits. Again, regulation. Prabhupada was regulated. Very important in devotional service is regulation. Mind becomes peaceful through regulation. Sometimes it's not such an easy thing, right? To be regulated, especially in a place where you have so many visitors. Vrindavan is like that. I learned very quickly what to do, what not to do. I had an intuition, I think, when I became Prabhupada's servant. My only business was to sit in that room, wait for him to ring the bell. No other business. In Los Angeles, my friends, come to Mangalartik. Come to Mangalartik. It's really wonderful. Bhardaraj leading kirtans, Parikshit leading kirtans. Big people at that time. Agni Dev, beautiful Rukmini Dwarkadish. It was the world headquarters. Prabhupada stayed there sometimes for 2 months. So I actually had some friendships being there for some time. So finally they convinced me. So I went to Mangalartik. So it's 10 minutes in the Mangalartik. So it's like 4:45 in the morning. Prajumna tapping me on the shoulder. Prabhupada wants to see you, and he's really mad. This was our mantra in the entourage. Prabhupada wants to see you. He said 2 things. Either Prabhupada wants to see you, or Prabhupada wants to see you and he's really mad. That's what we would say. And then you know, oh no, what did I do? I already knew what I did. I went to Mangalartik. So I go in Prabhupada's room and I'm offering obeisances. Where have you been? I've been ringing this bell for hours. It was always hours. Even if it was 5 seconds, hours. Because he was on a different time frame, you know. His time and our time were 2 different things. For hours. I said, Prabhupada, I said I was at Mangalartik. You have no business going to Mangalartik. He said, what if I need something? What if I need you to do something? He said, your service is to be in your room 24 hours a day. Yes, Prabhupada. I already knew it, but they convinced me. I was in Maya because I went to Mangalartik. I was the only devotee in the whole society who was in Maya for going to Mangalartik. Everyone else were in Maya for not going to Mangalartik. I was in Maya for going to Mangalartik. That's Krishna consciousness. You have to understand what your service is, not rituals. Kirtanananda, he was so happy when I became Prabhupada's servant. He gave me a picture of Radha Vrindavan Chandra. Small picture. You put it on Prabhupada's desk wherever you go. Put it on so he sees Radha Vrindavan Chandra. So he'll know to come to New Vrindavan. And then he said, if I have any questions, I can send them to you. Instead of going directly to Srila Prabhupada. So one day he sends me this question. I get a letter. He's asking me, when we offer aratik, what should we meditate on? What should the meditation be? So I asked Prabhupada. He says there's no meditation. He says you're offering the flame, you're offering the water, you're offering... He says what you're offering, that's your meditation. Not a ritual. It's real. It's reality. So many times devotees would ask me, when you cook for Prabhupada, did you offer it? I'd say yes. I would cook it, put it on the plate, bring it in his room, and offer it to him. They said, you didn't offer it? I said, yes, I offered it to him. Everything we do, we offer to the spiritual master. That's who you offer it to. But he was right there. I didn't have to say prayers, hoping he accepts it. I put it down and I could see, oh, he accepted it. I see he's eating. In the train in India, you all know the trains in India, and they stop, local trains, they stop. Everybody gets out, you can buy this, buy that. So there in Mathura, Vrindavan, Prabhupada knew, he'd been there for so long. So he told the devotee, you can get kachoris at this place, such and such place. They make good cooking ghee, make nice. You can get the kachoris. In the 10-minute stop, so the devotee gets the kachoris. He brings them back in a little newspaper bag and everything, and water, wipes the table down, puts the kachoris, opens it up. Prabhupada's sitting in the chair, he's just looking at them. He puts the kachoris down, and then he gets down on his hands and knees. Prabhupada says, what are you doing? He said, I'm offering the kachoris. Prabhupada said, I'm right here. I always knew he was right there. He's the deity, but he's moving around, not like here. If he starts moving around, you're very, very advanced devotee if you see him moving around. Huh? He moves around, right? Vrindavan Bihari, he's always moving around. But I don't see him moving. Very beautiful. Madan Mohan, so amazing. You have Madan Mohan right here, footsteps away. We've been in Vrindavan for 4 years. We haven't been anywhere except Krishna Balaram Temple, because Prabhupada said, all of the holy places I put in the courtyard of Krishna Balaram Mandir. So we never feel like we have to go anywhere. But you have to go. You had your Harinam Sankirtan, you see Giriraj, all in 10 minutes. You can go around Govardhan Hill, see Madan Mohan, come back here. What a wonderful place. Maharaj, you're so kind. He says, this is your home, you come stay here. I may take him up. One of these days we may just take him up on that. Just come here and stay for a long time. Such a nice transcendental atmosphere. It descends at 9 o'clock, I suppose, huh? So we can go on and on, but at this time, anyone has any questions or comments? I was going to say some other things, but I don't want to. I know it's busy schedule. But we can take a question. Oh. So I was telling you about his schedule. I see that with Maharaj as well. It's a nice schedule. So after lunch, Prabhupada would take rest. 15 minutes would take rest, maybe. So now it's 2 o'clock. The whole afternoon, that was his bhajan time. Chanting. You'd see him walking around in his room, chanting japa. Sometimes he would sit down, start playing the harmonium, chanting bhajan. Whenever I heard that, I would go into the room. I'd sit down, and of course he'd look and go, grab the cartels. So I'd get the cartels and just play cartels. One time I foolishly said to him after he was done, I said, Prabhupada, your chanting is not like anyone else. He said, I have my own style. One afternoon, New Dwarka was a very special place. He would call me in different times, different days, just ring the bell. One day, rang the bell. Go in, offer obeisances. I'm offering obeisances, I can see his feet sticking out. He had his feet straight out under the table. Lotus, pink lotus feet. I got the massage twice a day. And he's got his hands in his bead bag. And he's chanting. my bead bag here. So he's had his hands in his bead bag and he goes, there, I finished my 16 rounds. He said, I can do any damn thing I want. He was talking to me. He knew my language. And he's telling me, just get your 16 rounds done. It was an instruction. He knew I'm sitting in the room doing who knows what, you know. Just chant your 16 rounds, he said. Another time, rang the bell, I go in, offer obeisances, and he's standing up many times. He'd be looking out the window. Right across from Prabhupada's quarters, there was at that time called a judo studio. All day long you'd hear, hut, hut, hut. He couldn't do anything about it, so he didn't say anything. He just, hut, hut, hut. All day going on. Never said a word because there was nothing he could do. In Vrindavan, from his quarters, he heard a fan on the third floor in the guest house. Kept calling his servant in. What's that noise? What noise? You hear? You don't hear the noise? Find that noise. So finally, it was a fan in a room hundreds of feet away. Prabhupada heard the noise. The hut, hut. He didn't say anything about it. Had to deal with it. He calls me in the room, and he's standing. He looks at me. He said, ultimately, you have to fly your own airplane. Then he said, we're not so advanced. He means I'm not so advanced. So we're not so advanced that we think, I want to come back life after life and do service. He said we should want to go back home, back to Godhead. He said that's desire should be there. I said, yes, Prabhupada. That's very advanced. Just want to come back, serve my spiritual master wherever he goes. How fortunate we would be. I think like that. Especially I hear he said he went to the hellish planets because I figure that's a place I'm destined to go to. I could possibly serve him there if he goes to those places. Another time I went in and he's looking out the window and he just sees a young boy and young girl. They're just talking. He said, when we were young, he said, we also had desires. He says, and the boy, he said, you see boy and girl, and the boy says, hey, let us go off and do this and do that. Prabhupada's saying it. He said, we also had, he said, but you couldn't even speak to the girl. He said, the culture was so strict. He said, my mother had best friend, across the street. She would go visit her. When she went to visit, they would send a carriage. No cars at that time. They would send a carriage. She would get in the carriage to take her across the street. He said the culture was so strong. So he would just say, what was the other one he would say? Anyway, are there any questions? We have opportunity. We leave early tomorrow morning. I had a wonderful time. I want to thank all of you, because all of you, you're all part of the orchestra that goes on here under the maestro, under your spiritual master that's doing everything. You're all instruments. We say that. What do you have in an orchestra? You have so many instruments. Some instruments make a lot of noise. Some instruments, not so much noise. But all of them are important. Just like all of you are important to do your service. That's our business. Very, very rarely Every day I was with Srila Prabhupada. He didn't say, thank you, every time I did something, thank you, thank you. No, this is your business. This is our good fortune to be able to do something. I always thought, I saw so many leaders, GBCs, sannyasi, everybody coming into the room. Me, I was just sitting in a room answering a bell. But that also was required. Everything is required. So it's wonderful. Everything's set up here very, very nicely. I see the orchestra goes on very, very sweetly from our vantage point as guests. Your service, very much appreciated. So I did want to, we both want to take the opportunity to thank you all. Those who have done that I know, those that I haven't seen what's going on, but you're all very much appreciated. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for remembering us, Srila Prabhupada. So always we are hearing and also we reading about Srila Prabhupada, but the devotees directly got association of Srila Prabhupada, like you and all other senior Prabhupada disciples. So we feel all of your heart is so much involved with Prabhupada, and how way you are feeling Prabhupada, it's really like hankering our heart that we had not that opportunity. So how way we can actually feel Srila Prabhupada as all of you are feeling?
Anyone feeling Srila Prabhupada here this morning? This is how do we feel Krishna? By discussing his pastimes. This is our business. It's not material. It's not mundane platform. Not like I have said these things for the first time. How do I come up here and speak about these? One of the first services I had was reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Stories that I had read dozens of times. I was reading him to Srila Prabhupada. He was in ecstasy, hearing. Told you, every day I would see him reading his books. Reading his books. He didn't have pencil and paper looking, make correction. He was relishing his books. And when I first saw it, I would become a little bit, I was surprised. I thought, he's reading his books. Everything he told us to do, he was doing it. Saying his gayatris, chanting his rounds, honoring prasadam, taking rest. Everything he did, told us to do, he was doing it. The first time I went in, he rang his bell. The afternoon I went into his room. He's reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he has his glasses on, he has the book in his hands. He said, this book is so nice. He was in ecstasy. He rang the bell so he could tell someone, his servant. He said, if you just read this one book, you'll become Krishna conscious. He said, you don't have to read hundreds of books. He said, everything is in this book for you to become Krishna conscious. Just by reading this one book. Kept saying, you don't have to read so many books. He knew also that I wasn't much of a reader. He said, just this book, read this book, you can be Krishna conscious. Then he just put his eyes back down, continued reading, which meant, now you can go. He didn't waste words, Didn't have to look at me and say, okay, I'm done talking to you now, you can leave the room. No, he didn't have to say. He just started reading, offered obeisances and left. 6 months later, somewhere else around the world, he rings the bell. I run into the room, offer obeisances. He's reading Nectar of Devotion. Got his glasses on, got the book in his hands. He looks at me. What does he say? You just read this one book. Everything is in this book, he said. This book is so nice. If you read this one book, you can be Krishna conscious. You don't have to read hundreds of books. He said the exact same thing. And then he put his head down, continued reading. I left the room. Another year goes by. Rings the bell. I go in the room, offer a obeisance. He's reading Krishna book. My very first service, direct service to him, was reading Krishna book to him. He's reading Krishna book. And he looks at me. This book is so wonderful. He said, if you just read this one book, you can become Krishna conscious. What does that mean? You're going to be with Krishna. You're asking how to be with Prabhupada. Just do service. You're connected. It's realization. He kept looking at me, said the same thing. You don't have to read so many books. He said, everything is in this book. Just read this one book. He said, you don't have to read hundreds of books. It's the same thing he said 2 other times over 2 years. But he didn't put his head down. He kept looking at me. You don't even have to read the whole book. He said, 1 chapter from this book, if you read 1 chapter, you can become Krishna conscious. I never say a word. He kept looking at me. You don't even have to read the whole chapter. Just 1 page. He ran his finger up and down the page he was on. If you read 1 page of this book, you can be Krishna conscious. Yes, Prabhupada. He kept looking at me. He didn't put his head down yet, so I can't go anywhere. You don't even have to read the whole page. Just 1 line. He ran his finger across the line. Just 1 line from this book, if you read it, understand you can be Krishna conscious. He kept looking at me. You don't even have to read the whole line. Just 1 word. He went, put his finger down on a word in the book. He said, just 1 word in this book, if you read, you can be Krishna conscious. Because Krishna is in every word. Then he put his head down and started reading. So this was Srila Prabhupada. He was not an ordinary person. He was from the spiritual world. Came down to give us Krishna in every word. Because he said, Krishna is dictating. He said, when I read these books, he said, I become amazed. How wonderful it is. He said, because not my writings. He said, Krishna is dictating these books. I was with Prabhupada a long time. When you're with someone a long time, what do we say? Familiarity breeds contempt. One has to be very careful. As they say, when you're pujari and personal servant. Actually, there's no difference except personal servant, your deity is moving around. Otherwise, the same business. You're bathing him, you're cooking for them, it's all the same. Responding so many times a day, offering everything. So you have to be very careful, very attentive, not to make offenses. So at this point in my life, I feel closer to Srila Prabhupada. I feel him more than even when I was with him at times. When I was first with him, I was every moment. But then he allowed me to become comfortable. Otherwise, how can you do service? If you think you're before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can you even offer anything? How can you lift your head off of the ground? There has to be some degree of understanding. They're giving me this opportunity. But still, that awe and reverence has to be there in the background. Otherwise, one can become offensive. So many of Prabhupada's disciples never saw him. Were they any less attached to him? They felt as close to him as I did through their service. Everything, your connection is through service. I learned when I was with Prabhupada, when I would massage is when he would talk to me. He would tell me stories. He would tell me about his childhood, things no one ever heard. One of the very first things he told me, I was massaging his legs. I was with him for a few months. I'm massaging his legs. He has a scar on his thigh. He said, "You see that scar?" "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "When I was a little boy, I was playing with fire." He said, "And my cloth caught on fire and went up." He said, "It's from that time." He said, "I was in the front yard." He said, out of nowhere, that's what he said, out of nowhere, he said, a man appeared and he put out the flames and left. He said it sounded very transcendental. Always I was doing service. Not that I came in the room and he started a conversation with me. I was always connected. I always felt my connection was service. If I was doing service, he was with me. That's what Prabhupada said, right? He came to the US. He said, I was never alone. That means his Guru Maharaj was with him. Should never think you're alone. That's misunderstanding. Always your spiritual master is there. What was I going to say? It was an evening. So many of these stories you hear about Prabhupada, his childhood pastimes, they're things he told me as I was giving him massage in the evening. The one I'll tell you because also he made sound, it was very transcendental. He said, Prabhupada always got what he wanted. If he wanted it, he got it. I see my godbrother, he's very similar. He wants something, he won't stop until he gets it, right? That's what's required as a devotee. You don't ever give up. Setbacks. Prabhupada's typewriter was stolen, his manuscript was stolen. Lesser person would think, oh, Krishna doesn't want me to do, he doesn't want me to complete Bhagavad Gita. He doesn't want me to be here in America. I haven't made any devotees. I've been here 6-8 months now. Nothing has happened. No, never stop trying to fulfill the order of your spiritual master. So that evening, Prabhupada had muri, puffed rice. One of his favorites, puffed rice, peanuts. So now we're in the bed. I'm in bed with him because the mosquito net is there, Juhu. It's the only thing I liked about mosquitoes was I got to sit in the bed with Prabhupada. Sometimes there were so many mosquitoes in Juhu, and they were big. I don't hear they're very tiny. There they were like this, they were big. And even you would put the net down, the mosquitoes were in there. And I'd be rubbing his back. And I go, pop right on Prabhupada's back. And I heard Prabhupada say, they are aggressors. He said it's mentioned in Manu Samhita, one is aggressor, you defend yourself. So he okayed it. So then I became like a real Kshatriya, Every mosquito. But he said, my mother made nice puffed rice, expert puffed rice. But he said to me, he said, one night, I wanted puris. And my mother said, it's too late. I'll make you muri. Now, Prabhupada's just a young boy. He didn't say his age, but I did. He was a young boy. He said, no, I want puris. And his mother said, no, I'll make you muri. It's too late. Too difficult to digest. And when he speaks, he takes the roles of whoever he's speaking. Whoever person speaking, he assumes that role. So he brings you right into the pastime. This is the art. This is the art of transcendental conversation. So then the third time, threes, big number, threes in spiritual life. He said, I want puris. He said, and my father said, if he wants puris, give him puris. And then he looked at me, he said, perhaps my father knew. And then he stopped speaking. So he would just drop these little hints of who he was. But never would he say anything. But he said it. Perhaps my father knew. He said that to me twice. Perhaps my father knew. Twice he said to me, my very first meeting he said to me, I had Krishna book in my hands. I read Krishna book to him. As soon as I sat down, I had Krishna book. It was my first day in the garden. He said, I like the cowherd boys very much. Then he said, read. So I read. Okay, I think it's getting late now, huh? We have the okay. There's one more question. Oh, I'll allow. He'll allow. Prabhu will allow. Yes.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Would you kindly narrate the past time where Srila Prabhupada told you that you never argue back?
Oh, it was short, so yeah, we can say that. Yeah, because I didn't. I learned, that's what I said, I had an intuition with Prabhupada. Never, if he asks a question, it's usually a trick question, you know? So whatever you say, you're going to be wrong. I figured that out before I even heard the first person ask. And that was in the garden. Prabhupada said, he's sitting in the garden, beautiful day in Los Angeles, and clouds, white cloud, blue skies. And he said, what color is Krishna? I'm thinking, what kind of a question is that? You know, we all know what color. We all know what color Krishna is. You know, why is he asking this? But I knew, because whoever answers, you're going to be wrong. Somehow or other, he's going to make you wrong. So I didn't say anything. It's my first meeting with him. One devotee, brahmachari, like you, raises his hand. It's described in Krishna book. Very smart boy. It's described in the Krishna book, in the Shastra, absolute truth, that he's blackish, like the monsoon cloud. Happily shook his head. He said he's blue like the sky. He said that's why the sky is blue, because it's reflection of Krishna's bodily effulgence. You can see Krishna all the time. All you have to do is look at the sky, and then you can see Krishna. This is the business of Guru. This is the business of the pure devotee. How to see Krishna. How to see your Guru. That's their business. How to develop love. You develop love for your spiritual master. Right? Prabhupada said, I love Krishna, you love me. So you love Krishna. So this is our business. And these emotions develop through service. Everything is about service. Otherwise, nothing. Prayer, please engage me in your service. So you all continue. What you do is very, very important. On every level, it's important because you're helping these people that become attracted to devotees through their service. That's service for them. They make advancement just by seeing you and thinking, what a nice person he is. They're advancing in Krishna consciousness. And you, through doing the service, you're advancing in Krishna consciousness. And we all become happy in that way, working together as much as possible. So we have to stop here. Again, we leave tomorrow morning, early in the morning. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Oh. I have something. I have something. I have Prabhupada's slippers here. These are not ordinary, these are transcendental slippers that were on Japan Airlines, 1975. Prabhupada wore these slippers for an 8-hour flight. Somehow or other I managed to keep them because they're very simple and easy. So if you all come up very quickly, you can all get...
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Just before that, I'll just give some gifts from Govardhan Ecovillage. Request Adhikesha Prabhu to give to Srutakirti Prabhu, and request his good wife Vishaka Mataji also to come forward. So on behalf of Govardhan Ecovillage, khol dijiye, we would like to offer our gratitude to Srutakirti Prabhu for giving us association. We have the DT photos and also some gifts. Srutakirti Prabhu is now very much active part of ISKCON Krishna Balram Temple Vrindavan core team, and Mataji is completely revamped the DT department at Krishna Balram Temple. So request Adhikesha Prabhu to give to Vishaka Mataji also. Haribo! Haribo! Thank you very much for coming, and we would now get blessed by these